The first thing that you'll want to do is prepare the pouch per the instructions. In addition to cutting your pouch materials and preparing the pouch, we'll also need to have material for the strap. Now, the strap length is completely up to you, but the width is what is already determined from our pull tab. We'll need 2 D-rings and 2 of these clips. Now, my clips and D-rings are about a 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch in size. They work really nicely with this width of pull tab. So that's what I'd recommend that you get if you don't already have them on hand. We will start out by adding a D-ring to our already finished pouch. So hopefully you have D-rings that have a little split in them. All you need to do is grab some pliers and open up the D-ring so that you can slide it on to the pouch tabs and we can add a strap to it. If you don't have D-rings that can be opened like mine can, you will need to sew them on to the tabs on either end of the pouch while you are making the pouch. Alright, so let's get started cutting the strap. You can also feel free to use any strap material that you might have on hand if you have like a rope or a cord, or also if you have a purse chain, like a metal chain that you'd like to use. You can feel free to use that. You don't have to actually make a strap in the matching fabric if you don't want to. Also, the length is completely up to you, as I mentioned before. This is really all the fabric I have left from my pouch. So I am probably going to be cutting this out a couple times and then stitching it together to make it long, because I would like to have a crossbody pouch. So I'm going to take my fabric and we want to line it up with the pull tab here. So on the wrong side, you will notice that my fabric is a little bit shiny on the wrong side, and that's just because this is actually a scrap from something else that I was using that I didn't end up making, but it already has interfacing on it. So if you would like to also interface your strap, I would highly recommend that, because it will give it the extra stability and structure that you may be looking for. With this ruler, we're going to use it as a guide to just draw a line running down to show us where to cut out this fabric. It's approximately 31 inches. So I think I am going to add to that. And I'm just gonna cut another strip. I'll just use this one that I cut before as a guideline for cutting the second one out. If you have, continuous length, you really don't need to do this. I just am using scrap, so I don't have the continuous length that's needed to make the strap as long as I would like it. So we're talking like 51.5 is my length for the crossbody strap that I want to use. Now if you are piecing parts together here, just align the right sides so that they're together, and then just stitch this either really close or at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then open it and press it back so that it's out of the way. Okay, so now is a great time to cut some interfacing the same length as your strap, and then iron it on, fuse it to your fabric so that it is all ready to go. If you're going to be using interfacing, if you have a heavier weight fabric, you don't really need to use interfacing. I just did because I want to give some extra stability to this quilting cotton. All right, so I have fused my interfacing to the wrong side of this fabric, and now we are going to fold the strap the same way that we did the pull tab, and we're gonna iron it in place. So if you can see here, my two pieces, because I didn't have a continuous strip of fabric, I affixed my two pieces together. I sewed a seam right down the middle, and then I ironed that down flat. You'll want to do that if you also don't have a continuous piece of fabric. But the first thing you want to do is just fold the strap in half. And you can iron this, or you can finger press. I would recommend, if you're going to finger press, do that first and then just run over it with the iron, because it does make everything crease a lot nicer and stay put while you're sewing. Okay, I've got the strap folded in half down the center. Now, I'm going to take both sides and fold them in towards the center again and press them in place. You can do this at the same time if you want, or do all one side at one time, come back and do the other one. And this is much easier with an iron, so go back and press all this down. Now, with the ends of our strap, you want to just take them over about a 1/2 inch. So if you have a seam gauge or a ruler, just measure that 1/2 inch and press this down, and then fold and iron over again so that the edges are nice and neatly encased in the ends of the strap. And do that for both sides. So pull that down a 1/2 inch and then repeat our process again. So you fold it in half and then fold the two outsides in on each other. Okay, I'm gonna go press this with my iron now. I have everything pressed down, and you can see I'm going to have a nice thin strap where I will be able to fit my D-ring through. So it'll be the perfect width for my D-ring and my D-ring with the clasp. All right, so the next step is to just stitch up this open end, and you're also going to want to just stitch around the ends that you folded down. So right here on the end of the strap, stitch about 1/8 of an inch, scant eighth, all the way up this opening and around the other side and reinforce. And if you want to, just for like an extra little decorative look and also added stability, You could also stitch on the other side about 1/8 of an inch on the folded side if you want to, and that will just give your strap an extra stitch of stability. Okay, so I've just stitched up my strap and I have it nice and reinforced. Now what we're gonna do is take the ends and kind of fold them over. But first we're gonna grab our clips that we'll be using and we're gonna slide them on to the end here and go over it. And then now we're gonna fold this down about 1.5 inches. And then we're gonna reinforce this area. So we're gonna stitch this in a rectangle. So just go back over the lines of stitching that you've already done here and just go back and forth with your stitching. And then go over the ends and the ends. So you're making a rectangle with the stitching to reinforce it. And you can kind of, you know, do that on either side, whichever side you want to do it on. I'm not even going to clip or pin this in place, but you could if you wanted to. All right, so now we have our strap with the hooks on it, and we can grab our pouch with the D-rings, and now all we have to do is hook this on, the other side, and now we have a removable strap. Now we have our finished zip pouch that has now become a purse. Enjoy! So we're actually going to take this same zip pouch that I made with the D-rings on it and now actually make a wristlet strap. So if I don't want to always have the purse strap, I'm going to be able to make this into a wristlet. So let me show you that process now. We have now cut our strip of fabric for the wristlet strap to 11.5 inches long, and the width matches the optional zipper hold tab that the pattern has, so it should be about the same width. What we're going to do is cut a piece of interfacing that matches this size, and we're going to fuse it to the fabric. So let's do that and we'll come back. Alright, so I have this piece with fused on interfacing. Now we're going to do a familiar process here. We're going to fold and press our long end in half. And then from there, we're going to press the centers, or sorry, the outside edges into the center. And I'm finger pressing right now, but you should go over this with the iron if you're able. And then finger press the other side as well towards the center. Now we're going to go ahead and iron that. Alright, so I have everything nice and pressed, but I'm actually going to go ahead and open up the end of this again. because we're going to do something different for the wristlet than what we did for the strap and, you know, for the other parts as well. We're actually going to attach these two ends together. So let's just open them up like I said before. They're already pressed in place though, so it'll make it easier later on. But we're gonna open this up and we're going to just stitch this edge, I would say at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've actually failed to mention a very important step. Before you stitch these ends together, grab one of your D-rings and just slide it over one of the ends so that, you know, it's on here. So just, and then we're going to stitch these ends together at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to get it on there for now. All right, so this may look a little bit messy, and that's okay. We're gonna make this prettier. But all of the ironing work that we did was not done in vain because we needed to get that onto the loop. So now just fold your ends down in the places where you ironed before and fold them down, and they should be nice and crisp because of the iron work that we did before. And if your ends are a little bit bulky or weird, you can cut some things off to make it fold a little bit nicer. So I'm going to trim a little bit. But what we want to do is just smooth everything out so that we can then go ahead and stitch around this. So grab some pins if you have them, or clips, whatever you prefer, and just clip this on closed so that everything is aligned. And we're gonna have a continuous tube. So as we're sewing this next part, just move the clip around to the part that you've already done. But we're gonna close these ends that are open right now, and we're gonna just stitch all the way around on the side. Now we can also stitch on the other side as well, just to make this a little bit more crisp and even, and to give it even more reinforcement and structure. So let's do that now. Alright, so now we have what looks like a little bracelet. It's a consistent loop that we've stitched around on both sides. And now where you have the seam, that is going to be an important spot for us here. We're gonna use that to just reinforce along this edge. So move your D-ring down, you know, a bit, and then just straighten out your strap a little bit. And you're gonna just run across here to reinforce the stitching and keep the D-ring in place. This is at about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're just gonna back stitch a few times over that spot. right, now we have a wristlet strap, so I should be able to slip my wrist through here, which I can. And now we're gonna grab that pouch again. And now whatever size pouch you have is the one you should definitely be using for this. But we're gonna grab one end of the D-ring here. Or sorry, yeah, one end of the D-ring. And now we just loop our strap on, and now we have a nice wristlet Zoe Zip pouch. The next thing we're going to be looking at is how to add a pocket to the Zoe Zip Pouch interior. So we're going to start out with our regular pattern. We can go ahead and print another one off if we need to, but we do need a clean pattern that we're going to manipulate here. What I'm going to do is just grab some tracing paper, and I'm going to just trace a new one out in the size that I'm going for. So we're gonna go with the medium size again here. And I'm just going to go over all the pattern lines. We're gonna just trace this really quickly. I have most of my main lines traced out, but I left the top off on purpose. What I'm going to do is I am going to trace it, but let's just keep in mind that this is where we're going to be adding some extra height. We're going to add it to the top. So make sure you've got your top at the top. Now, I'm going to actually add about 1 inch extra here at the top for this pocket. What that means is I'm going to end up folding my pocket over by 1 inch. So just mark it out 1 inch from the top of the pouch. You could do 2 inches. It's completely up to you. And let's just connect it. Just extended. Our pouch piece. Okay, now going to cut this out. This extended piece, we're just gonna cut it out. Alright, so I've cut out my pieces according to the pattern instructions, but I've also cut out an extra piece out of this new, I've actually cut 2 extra pieces out of the pocket extension. So let's grab our fabric that we'll be using ordinarily. So this is just one of the ordinary lining pieces. And now this is one of the extension pieces. So just grab one of those. Okay, and we should see that our pocket extension piece is longer by that inch that we added at the top. It's hard to see, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna just fold this over by that inch. So I'm just going to take my seam gauge. And I'm going to fold this over, and I can finger press or iron this down. Alright, so that was folded over 1 inch. Now I can fold it over one more time because I want to encase the raw edges, and this is going to make a nice little opening for my pocket. Okay, now what I'm going to do is grab that piece of the lining that is not longer. I'm going to lay the lining pocket piece over top just to make sure everything looks good. So now this top part is going to be our pocket. So before we do anything else, let's stitch along this edge, right along the edge, just to close this and keep it down and nice and neat. All right, so I've got this little pocket edge sewn. Now I am going to grab my lining piece and line these up. Now, if we want to have 2 pockets in this pouch, because it is the medium size, so it would be nice to have 2 pockets instead of just 1 main pocket. Fold this in half, the whole thing, and just finger press it down. So we can just fold the 1 layer if we want to. I'm just gonna finger press this in place so we know where the center is. Lovely. And now we can just go ahead and stitch right down the center on that finger press seam, and that will perfectly split the pockets in half. All right, so this is definitely starting to look like a pocket now. It should be 2 sides here separated. Now, the final thing we're gonna do for this pocket is we are going to just baste around the edges. So baste on this edge, and you can baste the bottom and the other side. This will just keep it so that this piece acts like 1 layer when you are putting all the pieces together that you would normally follow during the pouch assembly. So if you want to, you can also, you know, these pockets are pretty deep. They will go into the bottom of the pouch. If you don't like that, you could just, you know, stitch along the bottom, and that will close it up a bit. All right, so now your Zoe Zip with a pocket is all ready to be assembled in the normal way. You are just gonna do all of these steps before you add any of the zippers and do any of the main steps. This is just preparation for the pouch. All right, so next we're going to actually be talking about adding a zipper pocket into one side of the Zoe Zip pouch. So what you'll need to do is cut your fabric for the pouch as you normally would. And you're interfacing as well. Just get all of those layers that you'll be using in place. But the next thing that you'll be doing is grabbing the Roxy wristlet outer pocket pattern piece and cutting 2 pieces of fabric and interfacing out of the size of the Roxy wristlet. So the Roxy wristlet is actually a freebie up on our website, so you can just go onto rebecca-page.com and download our Roxy wristlet pattern. It's just another really cute zippered wristlet pattern that we offer for free. And this is a free pattern piece, so you can just print this out. It's 2 pieces of paper and taped together. It's not a big deal. And we'll just use the pocket from the Roxy wristlet, and we can even follow the instructions as well for the Roxy wristlet outer pocket if we want to, but I'll be going through them in the sew along. So I have everything cut out, interfaced, and I actually have my zipper ready. And the way I prepared this zipper was exactly the same as I did the main Zoe Zip pouch zipper, only I don't want to put pull tabs on the ends of these zippers. I just want to put the zipper tabs on like I did. This is a 7-inch zipper. That's what it states to use in the Roxy wristlet pattern. All right, so we're going to grab this and we're going to clip it in place on the edge, along the top edge of the Roxy wristlet lining piece. And once you've done that, grab your Zoe Zip pouch lining or main fabric or whatever it is that you want to, probably your main fabric, and just attach this to the top. So we're sandwiching the zipper in between the Roxy wristlet and the zipper. And now we're going to stitch right along the edge with our zipper foot. All right, now we're going to open this up and flip it over and down. And we're gonna press this side to the other side so that the 2 areas are pressed flat and the zipper is on the one side there. Okay, so now we are going to grab our other piece for the Roxy wristlet, and we're just going to place it right behind with the edge lined up, and then put this piece that we have stitched together here with the zipper on the top. And then we're going to just stitch along this edge with the zipper foot. Okay, so this should actually start to look like a zipper pouch now. The only thing is just flip this up, and then we're going to secure this down, this pouch. So just align the sides here and then stitch along the bottom so that this is a little pouch. So I'm just gonna put this in place. And we're gonna stitch around here, 1/2 inch seam allowance, 1/2 inch seam allowance, 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, so now I have a little zipper pouch. And if I open this up, it's just a little zipper pocket for the Zoe. And now the next step that I would take is I would just grab my main pattern piece and attach the other side like I normally would. And I should have everything ready to go for the main pattern steps. For our final hack of the Zoe Zip Pouch, I will be showing you how to add essential oils organization into the lining of the pouch. For this hack, you will need all of the same materials that you would ordinarily need for the regular Zoe Zip, but you will also need 1-inch elastic. The length of elastic will depend on the pouch size that you are making. I am making the small sized pouch in this particular video. The first thing you are going to do is take your 2 lining pieces that have been interfaced. Next, you'll grab your 1-inch elastic. Approximately halfway down on the pouch, you will align the elastic over top of the lining piece. Make sure that there is about a 1/2 inch overlap of the elastic on either end, just to give you some wiggle room. Once you have found the size, cut a second piece so that both sides of the pouch will have elastic organizers. If you aren't into essential oils, you could also use the same method for makeup brushes in the large or extra large sized bag. So grab whatever you are going to be using. In my case, I'm using essential oil bottles, and we are going to just lay them out over top of the elastic and grab some tailor's chalk. And after you've placed your essential oils or whatever object you're using in the place that you want them to go, you're going to use that tailor's chalk to draw a line between the bottles for your stitching. You could also measure approximately 1.5 inches for each bottle size, and that should get you a decent size of elastic. Once you've placed and marked your first bottle, measure the opening that you just drew, the line of tailor's chalk, to see how wide your bottles or your objects are. And then from there, once you've measured, you can simply repeat that measurement and draw lines or markings on the elastic for each line that you are going to sew. I'm marking my openings approximately 2.5 inches wide, and then I'm placing a pin in the spot. You may want to make your openings more narrow to accommodate more bottles and to have a tighter grip on the bottle in the actual pouch. I'd actually recommend probably 1.5 to 2 inch openings to make it a little bit tighter of a grip on your bottle. Once you have all of your lines marked, you are going to stitch down the markings with a straight stitch, go back and forth at each line to really secure that part of the elastic. We want to hold the elastic to the pouch lining at the lines that we've marked or pinned. Now that we have nice spaced out pieces of elastic to hold our bottles in place, you can give them a double check, put a bottle or whatever object it is that you made this for slide it into the elastic, see if it holds it in place. If it doesn't, if it slips out a little bit, you may want to go back and just stitch another line of stitching to hold that a little bit tighter. If it holds it perfectly, then you can just progress on to the next step of the pouch, which would be to start adding the zipper to the top of the lining piece and assemble the pouch normally. Now I have my finished Zoe Zip Pouch with the essential oils organizer inside, and you can see how nicely it holds bottles. The small size holds about 6 bottles of oils. So if you want to have more organization, just make a bigger pouch and add a little bit of extra elastic. Enjoy!